I was wiping down tables at Murphy's Diner for what felt like the 1,000th time that week when the most expensive car I'd ever seen rolled into our gravel parking lot. Working as a waitress while putting myself through community college wasn't glamorous, but it barely covered my bills. What I didn't expect that morning was for a billionaire CEO to walk into our small-town diner and sign a check with a signature I'd memorized from a faded photograph I'd been staring at since I was 7 years old, a signature that belonged to the father my mother had always told me died before I was born. Before we dive in, how old were you when you met your first love? Share your story in the comments, and subscribe for more real-life revelations and unexpected connections. Now, let me take you back to the ordinary Tuesday that turned my world upside down. At 24, I believed I had my life figured out. I worked the morning shift at Murphy's Diner in Millbrook, a quiet town in upstate New York, where nothing exciting ever happened. The pay was low, but tips helped me cover tuition at the local community college, where I studied business administration. My plan was simple: finish my degree, save enough to transfer to a 4-year university, and eventually start my own business. I lived with my mom, Linda, in the same small apartment we'd shared since I was a child. She worked as a seamstress at the local dry cleaner and had raised me alone after my father supposedly died in a car accident while she was pregnant. Or at least, that's what she'd always said. The only connection I had to my father was a photograph I found tucked inside one of Mom Sip's old books when I was 7. 2 teenagers in love, standing by a lake. On the back, in neat handwriting, it read, "Linda, you are my whole world. I will love you forever, Garrett." The signature was unforgettable. A bold "G" followed by elegant flowing letters. I'd asked my mom about the photo once, but she'd gotten so upset that I never brought it up again. Still, I kept the picture hidden in my jewelry box, tracing the signature so often over the years I could draw it from memory. That Tuesday began like any other. I arrived at Murphy's at 6 a.m. to prep for the breakfast rush. The diner was a local institution. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and a menu unchanged since the 1980s. Most of our customers were truckers, construction workers, and retirees who came for the coffee and stayed for the gossip. I was refilling the coffee station when my manager, Pete, approached me with an unusual request. "Kate, I need you to handle the back booth today. Some businessman booked it for a private meeting at 10 a.m. He's paying extra for privacy." "What kind of businessman?" I asked, curious. Millbrook wasn't exactly a business hub. Don't care." Pete shrugged. "Money sets money. Just keep him happy, and keep the coffee coming." Exactly at 10 a.m., a black sedan with tinted windows pulled up. A tall man in an expensive suit stepped out. Early 50s, salt and pepper hair, and the kind of confidence that comes with serious success. Even from a distance, I could tell his suit cost more than I made in 3 months. He walked in like he owned the place, scanning the room before settling into the corner booth Pete had reserved. I grabbed a menu and a pot of coffee and walked over. "Good morning," I said, with my best customer service smile. "I am Kate, and I'll be taking care of you today. Can I start you off with some coffee?" "Please," he said, his voice deep and refined. He had kind eyes despite the obvious wealth and authority he carried. "And thank you for accommodating my request. I know this isn't the Four Seasons." "Murphy Sips has its own charm," I replied, pouring his coffee. "Are you expecting someone?" "Yes, my attorney should be here shortly. We have some sensitive matters to discuss." I nodded and left him with the menu. But something about him unsettled me. The way he held his head, his profile. He seemed familiar, but I couldn't place him. 20 minutes later, another man in a suit arrived, clearly the attorney. They spent 2 hours speaking in low voices about contracts and acquisitions. I kept their coffee full and brought lunch, trying to give them privacy. When I came over to refill their cups again, I noticed the businessman had pulled out a gold pen and was signing papers. From where I stood, I could clearly see his signature, and my blood ran cold. The coffee pot slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor and drawing everyone's attention. He looked at me, startled, but I quickly apologized and rushed to the back for a rag. Pete came over demanding an explanation, but I couldn't focus on him. I needed another look at that signature. I hurried back to the booth, just as he signed another page. The bold "Ged," the flowing letters, the same signature I'd been staring at for 17 years. "Sir," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "that sip's my dad's signature." He looked up, confusion flickering across his face. "I stim sorry. What did you say?" "Your signature," I stammered, my hands trembling. "It sep's identical to my father Sip's, but that sep's impossible. He died before I was born." The color drained from his face. He stared at me, really looking at me for the first time. My dark hair, my green eyes, the shape of my face. "What sep's your name?" he asked quietly. "Kate Baker." "And your mother Sit's name?" "Linda Baker." His gold pen slipped from his fingers and hit the floor, the sound echoing through the silent diner. He gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "Linda Baker," he repeated hollowly. "From Buffalo?" "Yes, but how do you? How old are you?" "I turned 24 last week." "Oh my God," he whispered. "You stet, her daughter. You stet, my daughter." The world tilted. I grabbed a chair to steady myself. "That sep's impossible. My father died in a car accident. My mother told me." "Your mother told you your father was dead?" His voice was heavy with disbelief and pain. "Kate, my name is Garrett Kane. I was 17 when I fell in love with your mother. We planned to marry after graduation, but her parents didn't approve of me." I felt sick. "Garrett Kane, as in Kane Industries?" He nodded slowly. "Your mother just vanished. One day she was there and the next her family said she moved away and didn't want to see me again. She moved here to Millbrook to live with her aunt. She was pregnant with me." "Pregnant?" he repeated, the word hitting him like a blow. "She was pregnant, and she never told me." With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and showed him the photograph Yvette saved years ago. "Is this you?" He looked at the image, and tears filled his eyes. "That was taken at the lake the summer before she left. I gave her that picture the day before she moved away. I wrote on the back that I love her forever. I found it when I was 7. I said, my own voice breaking. I been staring at your signature my whole life, wondering about the father I thought was dead." Garrett reached across the table and gently took my hand. "Kate, I swear to you, I had no idea you existed. If I known your mother was pregnant, if I known she had my child, I would have moved heaven and earth to find you both." "But why would she lie? Why would she tell me you were dead?" "Because she was 18, pregnant, and afraid," he said quietly. "Because her parents probably convinced her I wasn't good enough, that I would ruin her life. She thought she was protecting you from a father she believed might not want you." I thought of my mother, the sadness I'd sometimes noticed in her eyes, the way she never dated seriously or sought love again. She had never truly moved on. She never married anyone else, I realized. "And I never got over her," Garrett admitted. "I built an empire, made more money than I could ever spend, but I never found anyone who made me feel the way Linda did. I always hoped one day I see her again." We sat in silence, both struggling to process what we had uncovered. "Are we certain you're my father?" I asked at last. "Kate, you have my eyes. I know you my daughter. If you allow me, I like to know you. And I like to see your mother, to understand why she carried this secret for 24 years. She be terrified," I said. She'll think you hate her for keeping me from you. I could never hate her, Garrett replied firmly. I am hurt, yes, I am devastated. I missed your childhood, but I understand why she did it. She was protecting you the only way she knew how. Looking at this man, my father, I felt a mix of anger, joy, and sadness for the years we had lost. I have so many questions. 24 years sets worth. But maybe now, we finally have time. That evening, I waited in our apartment for my mother to come home. I had called in sick, saying I had a family emergency, which wasn't entirely untrue. When she walked in at 6:30, tired from work, she froze at the sight of me sitting at the kitchen table with the old photograph in front of me. Kate, what's wrong? You look like you seen a ghost. Mom, we need to talk about my father. The color drained from her face as she sank into a chair. Honey, you know your father died before you were born. Why bring this up now? Because I met him today. Mom, I met Garrett Kane. She went still, her eyes fixed on the photograph. That's impossible. He came into the diner. I recognized his signature from this picture. Mom, he sits alive. Been alive this whole time, and he never knew about me. Tears filled her eyes. Oh God, Kate, what have I done? Why did you lie? Why did you say he was dead? Because I was 18, terrified and ashamed, she said, her voice breaking. Because my parents convinced me he would ruin my life, that he was just a poor boy with no future. When I found out I was pregnant, I was already here living with my aunt. I was too scared and too proud to call him Dad's, but you could have told me the truth later. You could have tried to find him. How could I? She asked desperately. How could I call after 24 years and say, Sick B, by the way, you have a daughter? I never told you about Sick. How could I explain letting him believe I didn't love him, when the truth is, I never stopped? I reached for her hand. Mom, he never stopped loving you either. He never married anyone. He's been alone all these years, just like you. He must hate me, she whispered. He doesn't set. He sets hurt, but he understands. He wants to see you. He wants to talk. I can sit, she said, shaking her head. Not after what I did. Yes, you can, I insisted. Because you owe it to him, to me, and to yourself. You carried this secret for 24 years. It's time to let it go. The next day, I arranged for them to meet at the diner during quiet hours. From behind the counter, I watched as my mother walked in, nervous but graceful in a simple blue dress. Garrett was already there, waiting at the same booth. When he saw her, he stood, his face showing love, pain, and decades of longing. Linda, he said softly. Garrett, she whispered. They stood still for a moment, two people who had loved deeply as teenagers and lived apart because of fear and misunderstanding. You look the same, he told her. No, I don't, she replied with a sad smile. I older, tired, and full of mistakes. We both are, he said, but we have a daughter, Linda, a wonderful daughter. And so sorry, she whispered, tears falling. And sorry I kept her from you. And sorry I let you think I didn't love you. I understand why you did it, he said gently. You were protecting her and yourself. But we can change the past. We can only choose what to do with the future. I watched as they sat for hours, sharing stories of the years apart, of the lives they'd built, and of the love that had never left. My mother's face softened as she realized the boy she'd loved was still there, and my father's eyes brightened as he heard about my childhood, the daughter he never knew. When they stood to leave, they were no longer the broken people who had walked in. They were two who had finally found their way back. Kate, my father said, as they came to the counter, your mother and I have a lot to figure out, and a lot of time to make up for. But first, I want to do something for you. You don't need to, Just being here is enough." "No," he said firmly. "I missed your first steps, your first words, your graduation, everything. I can change that, but I can make sure you have every opportunity going forward." "What do you mean?" "You're not going to community college anymore," he said with a smile. "You go to any university you choose, study whatever you want, and never worry about money again. You my daughter Kate. You gay Kane if you want to be. I don't want your money out of guilt." I told him, "I not offering it from guilt," he said. "I not offering it because you my daughter, and it's already yours. I want to give you the opportunities I never had the chance to give before." 6 months later, I was enrolled at Columbia University, studying business with a minor in nonprofit management. My parents were taking things slowly, rediscovering each other after 24 years, but it was clear they were still deeply in love. My father kept his promise, not just supporting me financially, but being present. He came to my orientation, helped me move into my dorm, and called every week. My mother had left her job at the dry cleaner and was now director of the Kane Foundation, a charity my father founded to help young people access education and opportunities. One evening, as we sat in his apartment overlooking the city, my father said, "I used to think success meant building something bigger than yourself, leaving a legacy in business. And now?" I asked. "Now I know the only legacy that truly matters is the one you leave in the people you love." I built a business empire, but the most meaningful thing I ever created was you, even if I didn't know it at the time. Do you ever wonder how life might have been different if your mother had told me about you from the start? Every single day, he admitted. But then I think about the woman you become, the strength and independence your mother gave you by raising you on her own. If things had been different, you wouldn't be the same person. "You really believe that?" I asked. "I know it," he said firmly. "Your mother taught you to be strong, to work hard, and to value people over possessions. Those aren't lessons you learn when everything comes easily. You earned your character. Kate, money can buy that." I carried those words with me in the months that followed. My life had changed dramatically. I was studying at an Ivy League university, living in a dorm I never imagined I'd afford, and had opportunities I once thought impossible. Not long after, my parents remarried in the same church where they had planned to marry 25 years earlier. It was a quiet Saturday ceremony, attended only by me, my mother's aunt who had supported her all those years ago, and a few close friends. It was simple, but it was perfect. "Do you take this woman to be your wife?" the pastor asked. "My father?" "I do," he answered, his voice unsteady with emotion. "I always have." When they kissed, decades of separation, regret, and longing seemed to fade away. They were no longer teenagers, but their love was as steady as it had been when they were 17. At the small reception afterward, my father handed me a box, wrapped neatly. Inside was a gold necklace, with a pendant shaped from the photograph I had treasured for years. The picture of my parents by the lake, now engraved in gold. "I had it made from the original photo," he explained. "I wanted you to have something that represents not just where we came from, but where we're headed. That picture brought us back together. Kate, in a way, you've been the bridge between your mother and me all along, even when none of us realized it." I hugged him tightly. This man who had gone from a stranger to my father in just months. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know." Years later, I found myself back at Murphy's Diner, this time as a customer. I had graduated from Columbia with honors and was launching my own nonprofit organization focused on helping single mothers access education and job training. My father became my biggest investor, but more importantly, my strongest supporter. Pete, my old manager, walked over grinning. "Well, look who sits back. How's the fancy college graduate doing?" "Good, Pete. Really good." "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. Oh yeah, what SEP's that? I SEP starting a foundation, and I want Murphy SIPs to be one of our partner locations. We still provide job training, GED support, childcare during classes, and help with job placement. I want people in this community to have opportunities without waiting decades for a miracle. Pete SEP's face lit up. Count me in. This place has always been about more than food. It's SEP's about helping the community. As I sat in that familiar booth, I thought about how much had changed because of small moments, a signature on a check, a photograph tucked into a book, and a secret my mother carried for 24 years. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Proud of you, kiddo. Can't wait to see what you build next." I smiled and typed back, "Thanks, Dad. I learned from the best." The truth was, I had learned from both of them. From my father, I learned about vision, resilience, and building something meaningful. From my mother, I learned about sacrifice, strength, and protecting loved ones, even at great cost. And from both, I learned that love doesn't have an expiration date. That signature I had noticed, just a name in flowing script, had unlocked a lifetime of hidden love. It reunited two people who had never stopped caring for each other, and it gave me the father I had always dreamed of. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been working that day, if Garrett had gone to a different diner, or if I hadn't recognized his signature. But then I remember what my father told me about destiny and timing. Everything happens when it's supposed to, Kate. Your mother and I weren't ready as teenagers. We needed to grow into the people we were meant to be. And you needed to become the strong, independent woman you are before you could handle having a father like me in your life. He was right. The timing, though delayed, was perfect. We had all needed to grow into who we were meant to be before we could finally become a family. Now, as I build a foundation to help other families reconnect, while watching my parents rediscover their love, I feel grateful for every twist of fate that led us here. That single signature wasn't just ink on paper. It was proof that some bonds are so strong, they survive decades of silence, waiting for the right time to reunite people again. It was a reminder that extraordinary discoveries often happen in the most ordinary places, like a small-town diner where a waitress recognizes her father's signature and changes 3 lives forever. This is a powerful story about love, family, and second chances. What do you think of Linda's decision to keep Kate's existence a secret from Garrett? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more inspiring stories, and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.